Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Lifeboat Academy on Pender Island's info session, hosted by Coho BC, the Collaborative Home Ownership Initiative. We are super excited to be able to present this wonderful opportunity being put together by the Lifeboat Academy team, and to be able to be partners with them in helping them acquire the property and spread the word about this exciting initiative. My name is Noam Dolgan. I'm here with Brian Horwitz of Velocity Realty, and Ben, Roland, and Ronnie from the Lifeboat Academy team. And we're delighted to have people with us here this evening to learn more about it. Before we hear from the Lifeboat crew, a quick introduction to Coho BC in case some of you have not been to one of our events before. If you haven't been, please do. You'll be added to our mailing list, and please do watch our full intro to co-ownership presentation and many of the other wonderful workshops that we have on our YouTube channel to learn much more about how co-ownership of property works and what opportunities it can create. But to give you a quick introduction, Coho BC is an initiative working across the province to promote co-ownership as a viable and valuable housing option for people in our region, to provide the resources and professional support to assist groups going through the co-ownership process, to assist in the creation of these co-ownership groups through a dating pool, a chance to meet other like-minded individuals or families to create co-buying groups, or in this case, to help existing co-buying groups find other interested parties looking to join them in their initiative, and down the road, to help facilitate the resale of shared property interests to other potential buyers or partners. The initiative is a collection of professionals, realtors such as myself and Brian, lawyers, builders, financial institutions, architects, mediators, even matchmakers, all with expertise and experience in collective housing and co-ownership, so that we can really guide you through the process and set you up for success. Basically, the philosophy is don't reinvent the wheel and try to figure it out yourself. Use the experts who know what works, know what questions to ask, know how to navigate the complexities of finance, of law, and of real estate to set yourself up to succeed. This is not a unique BC initiative. I mean, we are a unique BC organization, but we are part of a global movement. We have here examples of co-ownership groups from across Canada, the United States, Australia, Europe, really anywhere where housing has gotten unaffordable and where social isolation really has continued to grow, and people are looking at alternatives to build more community, live more sustainably, and live more affordably. But you guys are, oh yeah, so who am I? Again, my name is Noam Dolgan. I'm a realtor here in Vancouver, in Metro Vancouver, and now working across the province, specializing in co-ownership, sustainable living and green homes. Really like to think about just real homes for real people and outside the box real estate thinking. So happy to talk to anybody after who's looking at their housing and their real estate needs to see what is the best pathway for you. We're also joined today by Brian Horwitz, who's a realtor on Vancouver Island, also similarly specializing in co-ownership and land shares, with more of a rural focus on acreage and agricultural properties, as well as more urban properties in the mid-island region. Brian, you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Noam kind of, summarized my involvement in a nutshell. But it's a pleasure to support social enterprises such as the Lifeboat Academy, and it's also a pleasure to support small partnerships in collaborative sharing of real estate and realizing the magic, what it brings regarding social support and affordability. And we'll leave it at that. Pleasure to be here.
So we have a lot of resources on our website. If you want to learn more about co-ownership, you can check out our guide to co-ownership, questions for partnership agreements, our YouTube channel. You can join into our matchmaking services. You can schedule a conversation. And most interestingly, similarly, you can come to one of our upcoming events, our collaborative real estate investment and financial considerations of co-ownership event in October 23rd. We have some in-person tours and matchmaking events, the next one being November 11th in East Vancouver, and our What is Real Estate Co-Ownership session that I talked about that goes through all the details to get you confident, the next one being November 20th. But you're not here to hear from me today. You're here to hear from the wonderful crew at the Lifeboat Academy. So with no further ado, I will hand the floor over to them to present their vision and their project, and then we will have a chance to ask questions and chat a little bit, and hopefully find a pathway for one or many of you to join this exciting initiative. So Ben, Roland, and Ronnie, thank you for being here. I'll let you share your screen and hand it over.
Thank you very much, Noam. And I can start with a plug for these guys because they are they walk the talk, and they've been with us and on a really crazy adventure, and they have been there holding our hands the whole time, providing us with really fantastic support. And so whether you're interested in our project or not, if you're interested in co-ownership, I think these are good guys to know. So with that, I'm pleased to talk to you today about the Lifeboat Academy. And really what we are is an experiment. And so I want you to imagine what you would do if you and 15 of your friends and family had access to your fair share of the Earth's natural resources. If you actually had the use of the arable land and the forests and the waters, what would you do? And how could you, what kind of a lifestyle could you provide for yourselves using those resources? That's the experiment that we're conducting here. And it's an experiment in community resilience. And at the heart of the model is resilience and regeneration and collaboration. We're trying to figure out how we can come together and work together to create the highest quality of life within a sustainable footprint. And we're trying to do it in a very real and material way. So we're not an intentional community, but we are a community that's coming together around a shared purpose. And that purpose is to create a model of resilience and regeneration at the person, place, and community level. So when we talk about lifeboats, what we're really talking about is a personal network of people that you can turn to for support when you really need it. A place-based community around you that can provide you with the material and the social support you need as we face into very uncertain times. We are coming together as a social enterprise. We are forming as a B corporation because we want to have a B corporation with a focus on creating food sovereignty and creating a replicable model. But we're doing it on location on Pender Island in the Spalding Valley, where we are creating a model that other people, that we're trying to proof and fine-tune a replicable model that other people can use in a way that provides tangible material benefits in the form of food sovereignty, providing a full healthy diet, carbon sequestration, ecosystem restoration, integrating indigenous ways of knowing and being into the work that we do, and finding effective ways to collaborate together for mutual benefit. And we plan to do that in a way that is economically self-sustaining. So the model includes multiple income streams where we are not only gaining money from the food that we're producing and the value adds that we're adding to the food, but also that we're hosting educational events, community events, and also leaning into agritourism and making the space available for people who are curious about an alternative way of living. So what would it mean to be a timesharecropper? The people that we're looking to engage in this project are people who are looking for a way to reconnect with the land and to really change their relationship to the land and to each other and to all our relations. So a timeshare at the Lifeboat Academy is a little bit like having a timeshare in a homestead. So you're a part-time, long-term partner. So you may not be living on the property full-time, but you're coming back to the property again and again over time, getting a chance to experience it in all the different seasons, all the different weathers, and over time as it starts to develop. And as a timesharecropper, you have both rights and responsibilities. Part of the new model, part of the experiment is really trying to break down this idea of private property, and where basically it's something that you use as you will, and instead really being clear on, while we have rights to access the property, to use the resources on the property, we also have a responsibility, an obligation of care for the property. So as a timesharecropper, you're coming in as part of the project. You're not just a tourist, you're not just an outsider, you're actually intended to be here and contributing and shaping the project as it takes form. And we think there's lots of benefits to being a timesharecropper. One is, especially for people in urban areas, it gives you a chance to reconnect with the land in a meaningful way over time, and also to reconnect with kindred spirits, with other people who share that same desire to live in right relationship with the territory. And it also allows you to keep one foot in multiple worlds. You can keep your day job, you can keep your life in the city, wherever you happen to be, but also start to get into experiment more with and experience what it's like to live in a more regenerative and connected way. And it also, at a financial level, allows people of modest means to have a means of investing in land directly. And ultimately, that's what this investment is in having access to and perpetual control of the land that we can use in the right way. So just a little bit about the property. We have a purchase agreement on 47 acres on Sedaeus, also known as South Pender. We are in the Spalding Valley, and the property represents 16 footprints based on the idea of a fair share footprint, which is basically, if we take the natural resources of the world and divide it by 8 billion people, that's what we get. That's our fair share to be able to support and maintain us. So that's 47 acres. It's 17 acres of arable land, 20 plus acres of flat usable silvopasture and forest. And it's zoned agricultural, and it also allows for agritourism as a permitted use. On the property, there are a number of assets, including the common house, which is a fairly sizable structure and very well set up for sort of a common shared house. There's a large, beautiful kitchen that's suitable for multiple people to work in at once, and a table that seats 12. There's also many large spaces that we can be using for accommodations and bunkie spaces. There's also this fantastic studio event space on the property. It is set up for musical performances, but it's also a perfect venue for hosting any kind of community workshops or events. And there's also the farm kitchen, which is a couple minor steps away from being a commercial kitchen. And part of the intention in the project is that we would actually finish it up as a commercial kitchen, and that would be one of the assets that we would be sharing as a community. And actually, I did not incorporate, we have a site plan for the property, and after I hand it over to Ronnie, I will look for that, I will bring it up, and then I can share that with you as well. It is a project in development. We have a purchase agreement, and we are currently on site in a kind of a short-term rent-to-own situation. But it also needs work. And so part of being involved in this project is working on the development of the property. The project will be led by 6 farmer caretakers, 6 or so farmer caretakers. And Ronnie, Roland, and myself are the first 3. We're looking for some other partners. And we would be primarily responsible for guiding the development of the property. But as a timesharecropper, you would also be an agent and a partner in that. And we would be looking for not just your labor, not just lifting totes and things, but actually shaping what this property could become and figuring out how we can share it collaboratively in a way that maximizes the benefit and the value and the health and the vitality of the property in general. So just imagine, could you imagine yourself being part of something like this? What kind of lifestyle are you ready to create for yourself and for the people you care about? And with that, I'm going to pass over to Ronnie. And we have found historically, there are a couple of questions that come up pretty regularly. So Ronnie's going to cover those.
Awesome. So we'll get into some of the more nitty-gritty details and aspects of the project and how folks can get involved. How much does it cost? So we are selling 1,600 shares at approximately 1,600 Canadian per share. It just kind of worked out that 1,600 times itself roughly equals the purchase price of the property. So 100 shares equals 1 full footprint. As Ben mentioned, the property is 47 acres, which represents about 16 fair share footprints. So folks who own 100 shares essentially own their full fair share footprint of all of those resources that would be allocated to them. And 2 shares in the project gets you 1 week per year on the farm per person in perpetuity. So the more shares that you own, the larger your timeshare, the more time per year you can spend on the property. And that time will be divided up seasonally. So we don't want everyone to just come in the summer. We want to encourage people to visit the farm through all of the seasons to really get a sense of the cyclical nature of how things function, both in terms of the workings of the farm, so the different parts of the growing season, but also just what is the farm, what is the property like through all the different seasons naturally. So what if I don't have the money up front? We have a mechanism for that. So your investment can be paid over time, just like a mortgage and any other kind of property. We are currently recruiting social mortgage holders who will purchase a bunch of shares at once so that other people can slowly purchase them back over time. And we're looking at a 10-year period, but you could also purchase your shares sooner than that if you wanted to, if you were able to do that. Is it possible to do work to own? Yes. So we offer the option to earn shares through sweat equity on the farm. And we use a profit sharing model to do that. So if you lack financial resources, we really don't want that to be a barrier to people. We're all about making farming and communal living and access to land as accessible as possible. What accommodations will be available? So in our site map, you'll be able to see we have plans to construct around 5 off-grid, roughly 10 by 10 bunkies that will complement the 3 very nice bedrooms that already exist in the common house. And we'll also have camping and other seasonable accommodations available in the warmer months, as well as other structures that people might build on the property. We have someone who's thinking about bringing a tiny home here and also a geodesic dome that could serve as a dwelling. So there's flexibility and options with how the accommodations will develop. What's your governance structure? So we use Sociocracy as our governance framework, and we use it for the reason that it's really, really effective and it seems to work. It seems to work really well. We're not married to it, but if someone wanted to show us something that worked better, we'd be open. But for now, that's what we use, and we find it really effective. And we also have a stewardship council that currently has about a dozen people on it that provides oversight and input into the workings of the project and the seasonal plans that we have. And we also include a seat for nature at that table. And we also have the rights of nature written into our articles of incorporation, which I think is really awesome. There are other ways to get involved. As Ben mentioned, we're growing a team of farmer caretakers who are people who live on the farm full time and basically help. They're kind of the core trailblazers of the project. So they make sure that the project and the plans are carried out, and they are responsible for sharing knowledge and information, sort of education around how to do what we're doing here with other people. And then we also have social investors and social mortgage holders who are people who purchase they invest larger amounts of money upfront to make it possible for other people either to have a spot sponsored for them on the farm or to buy shares over time. So we have those mechanisms built in. Can I live there full time? Yes, you can. As I mentioned, we have the farmer caretaker team, and we really are prioritizing housing for farmers, which is something that traditionally in our culture and society is not done. So that's a really important value for us. And there's also what we call the insurance policy. So back towards the beginning, I mentioned 100 shares in the project equals one full fair share footprint, which means you have the right to be on the property and part of the project full time if you have 100 shares. That said, this project is an experiment, and we first need to prove that the land can actually support 16 people in terms of feeding us and having enough water, and even at some point clothing us. That's down the line. But the insurance policy means that you are actively part of the development of the project and supporting our efforts to prove the capacity of the land. So if we're able to prove the capacity, then that means we can have more people here full time for the rest of time. And lastly, what if the project fails? So as a timesharecropper, your investment is backed by the value of the land, which means that it's protected. So if the B Corp for any reason has to sell the land, you will get your money back, and you will most likely get back more money than you invested, because as we know, the price of land in BC is consistently rising. So it's a pretty safe investment. And so in terms of next steps, if you want to get in touch with us, our email is here, friends@lifeboat.academy. You can send us an email if you'd like to set up a time to talk or set up a time to visit the farm. We also have office hours on weekdays, which I will post the link to that in a second. We also have a help desk, it's called our Resilience Help Desk, which lifeboatacademy.freshdesk.com, which has a lot more material about our project. We have a prospectus, a business plan, and financials that accompany the business plan. We also have our recently drafted articles of incorporation up there, and a bunch of other useful documents if you'd like to learn more about what we're doing. And you can also find us on these 4 major social media platforms: Facebook, TikTok, Mastodon, and Instagram. And also we're on YouTube, and we have a lot of other sort of Q&A type videos on YouTube of previous sessions we've had with people. So there's more info there as well. And with that, I believe we will be moving into questions. If anyone has a question they'd like to start with.
Thank you for that. That's really exciting, and exciting to see kind of the vision and the creativity behind this project. It's always exciting to see people trying to do better with land and trying to think long-term and socially, environmentally, and economically sustainable, the triple bottom line. So this is fantastic. Yes, we're opening the floor up to questions. So I'm just holding space till some are ready. Feel free to unmute yourself and share your question verbally or throw it in the chat.
Hey, Linda.
Yeah, can you maybe put in the chat all the YouTube, how we can get in touch with you, all those things. I couldn't get
Yep.
to my
Yeah,
note.
yep, we will definitely, Ronnie, I think Ronnie is on top of starting to type that in. So, right, you'll be seeing those in the chat. And we can also follow up with just an email with the links too.
Another quick question, if we just wanted to come for a visit, because I'm so far away, I'm sure that's possible at some, so probably just get in touch with you, right? Just email, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. That's where we are setting ourselves up so that we can host you and you get a chance to tour the property and we can talk in more detail about what we have in mind. So yeah, we're very open to, if you're nearby, you can drop by for the day. And if you're further away, then we've got accommodations to put you up overnight.
While you're formulating the question, I did notice that some people came in a little bit late to this presentation. We have recorded it, so everyone who's registered will get a link to the recording. So if you missed the beginning, feel free to go back and watch it. And please do send that link on to other people who you think might be interested.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to piggyback on that too. We are very happy to host more info sessions to anybody that you know who might be interested. And we are most interested in talking to your friends. If you're interested, we want to know who you think would also be a good fit. We recognize that this is a bit of an unusual approach to things. And so finding people who, kind of already speak the lingo, I guess, is kind of useful. So think about your friends who might also be interested.
I got one question for you. Where is the property? Like, we live in Vancouver, so how accessible is the property? Like, how can we go there?
So from Vancouver, there are direct ferries leaving out of Vancouver, Tsawwassen, and every day of the week. And usually there's a morning and an evening ferry. And you can also do ferries through Schwartz Bay, called a through fare. So it's generally you can get a direct ferry from Vancouver, and I think the direct is a little bit over an hour, like an hour 20 minutes. And sometimes you have to do stops at Maine or Galiano, but it's quite a pleasant. I work in Vancouver from time to time, so it's not a bad commute. It's you can come over, spend the day, spend the evening, go back the next day, and still have time to feel like you're here.
Okay, thank you.
Christine?
Oh,
Hi. I got to talk with this team for quite a bit when I was on Pender Island in the summertime, and so I'm glad to come into this session and start thinking of numbers and things like that. I have seen the property, I've seen the farm, it's gorgeous. I've got some questions, like I'd love to hear sort of the story of how somebody shows up on the land. So I love that there's an actual structure that you've developed that can just sort of slide into. But when you talk about, I mean, I know what I picture because I've woofed a lot about coming into a farm scenario and say I'm like coming in for my, timeshare cropping weeks and stuff like that. How do you, I'm kind of two questions. What do you picture that looking like? And how many people I know you've got a number in terms of dollar value that you need for the land purchase, but how many people do you have a vision of who are going to be coming and going and flowing in and out of this space?
Good questions. And I'll start with the how do we see people coming and going. So the first thing is we put a lot of work into thinking about how we onboard people into the work that we're doing here. And also a lot of work thinking about how we organize the work that actually happens on the farm. And one of our goals is to create the kind of positive experience working with the land that makes you want to do more of it. So it's really trying to figure out how do we work with, I guess one of our guiding principles is biomimicry. And that means that we're trying to encourage people to watch, to look, to try to understand what's going on. And to also understand the systems that are involved in the farm. So one of the reasons we use Sociocracy is, without getting into too much detail, you divide the work of the farm into these functional areas. So we have a chicken guild, and we have a goat guild, and we have a gardens guild. And that allows you to go and learn about the goats and learn about the gardens in a way that's sort of manageable and there's an easy entry, but then also to understand what's the relationship between, for example, the goats and the gardens, or the gardens and the compost. And so part of our onboarding is we've tried to create different routes of, different sort of learning routes for different people. So I'm probably muddling this and making it more complicated. So I'm going to look to Roland and Ronnie too to add to this. But basically, we're trying to make routes where you get to come and start to engage, start where you're most interested, and then learn and work out from there. And we think of this as a learning center, but the model of learning is that it's all peer-to-peer. So the way you learn is you shadow somebody while they're doing something until you feel like you've got a handle on it, and then they shadow you. And then once you have a handle on it, you become the shadower for somebody else. Like you then can share that knowledge with the next person. So that's part of the thinking, is how do we actually make it easy for us to work together, understand what people are doing. Roland, save me.
Well, and I hopefully I won't complicate things. It's also geared to meet you where you are. Like if you come and you have been tending and breeding goats for the last 25 years, you're going to be fast-tracked through us getting to know you. So essentially, it's a getting to know you process so that we know where you're at and what you need to be able to either come up to speed with how things work on the farm, or that we're able to assess to see what you can teach us.
Mm-hmm. Ronnie, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I just want to say we have an onboarding process that seems to work really well, and it basically is a way to bring folks into the way we work to just maximize efficiency for everyone, so people can quickly identify what they're interested in, start shadowing the chores in that area, the different projects, and then we make it really easy to give and receive feedback about how things are going, to identify where help is needed in different areas, and so we try to make everything as approachable as possible. And I think we've gotten really positive feedback on our onboarding process, because we want everyone to be able to understand the structures that we use to get things done and to collaborate. And we try to make it as easy as possible to come on board. So
and we try to make it as easy as possible too, to figure out how you can contribute. Like where it makes the most sense, where you have the skill, the passion, the idea, the motivation. So that's also, the goal is really to make sure that we minimize the kind of stepping on each other's toes. But within that, we allow maximum innovation and creativity. Because we really, the way and this kind of gets to the second part of your question, Christine, is how many people we're really working with the idea that this is the material that should keep 16 people alive and well. And we want to treat it as such. So that's kind of like the sacred obligation of the property. And, how do we treat this as though this is the well-being of 16 people and all our relations, not just the humans, but it's an experiment. And, we have to figure out, we have to kind of grow into it. We think it should be 16 people. And I actually imagine that there will be some seasonality and that there may be a lot of variation. Like we could imagine events, a workshop, a retreat happening where maybe there might be 25 people on the property for a short period of time. And then in the winter, in the slower months, it might be, 10 people. It's something we have to feel into, and we want to make sure that it feels right. It's not just that we're maximizing that we can do it, but it should also feel like a sanctuary, like a place, a refuge that you want to be at. So I hope that answers the question. Any other questions?
Yeah, thanks.
I got a question in the chat, which is, why do you say you're not an intentional community, and is there a reason to avoid that idea? So I'll start by saying we avoid using the term intentional community because people seem to have a lot of different ideas and assumptions about what we're talking about when we say intentional community. And I include myself in that as well, because I've been to different intentional communities that have different kinds of issues and things going on and power dynamics. So we're really trying to put the purpose of the project first, and recognize that we're centering the land, the well-being of the land, the health of the ecosystem, and the functioning of the project. And we are people gathering around that. So one of the ways we put it is, we're not an intentional community, we're a community of intentional people. Ben or Roland, do you want to add anything else to that?
No, I think that's good. It is. There's assumptions that come with it, and I will say, I feel like it's intentional community is sort of like intentionally falling in love. There's an aspect of community that there's a serendipity in how it happens, and trying to be too intentional about it can actually keep it from happening. Whereas when we're working together for shared purpose, it's much easier for those relationships to develop in a healthy way.
So keep the questions coming. I'm just going to put back up the contact information so that anyone who wants to get a hold of the Lifeboat crew or myself or Brian can do so.
And I am trying to locate the site map, and actually, Roland, I don't know if you have access to it. I'm having a difficulty finding it on this computer.
I searched for it earlier and I wasn't able to find it.
Okay, talk amongst yourselves. I'll see if maybe I can find it.
There we go. And there seems to be a hand up. Is that a new hand, or has that question already been asked?
It's a new hand.
Go for it.
Okay, thank you. I know it says my name is Jennifer, but that's my wife's name, and I'm Ron. And the two of us have a rural property in the Shuswap, and our vision is to create something rather like you have. We have 126 acres and more than one building, although our buildings are rather more humble than what we saw on your images. my question is, and I guess we've been here 3 years and have had a very difficult time drawing any like-minded people to us. And so it makes me wonder, how many people were you and what kind of resources, financial and otherwise, did you have behind you when you actually began? Because you seem to have made a lot of progress. I don't know how long you've been there, or I missed how long you've been, but what did it take to start? You know, did you have an endowment of $5 million to build all that you had? You know
We're
where I'm
still
going,
waiting.
yeah? You know?
We're still waiting for the endowment.
I'll bet you. Yeah, okay, that was intentionally humorous.
We're
Yeah.
waiting for the money to rain down any day now.
So
Yeah.
how did you begin? Who were you and how many were you? And can you give a thumbnail of that, your first steps?
Yeah, I'll give that. Roland and I are the ringleaders. We've been working on this for almost 10 years now. Actually, probably 10 years. We started off, we were living in an apartment in Port Moody, and realizing that we needed to get the hell out of there really quick. And we started to realize, given all the turbulence that was happening, you know, 10 years ago, we could see the writing on the wall. And we knew that we needed to start to reconnect with the land and our food sources more directly and with each other. And it's a 10-year story, so I'm going to try to make it really quick. We have had very little resources behind us. We've been mostly self-funded. We are currently on our 4th farm. We had one farm that was a handshake deal, one farm where we were caretakers, and one farm where we were leasing. And in all of those farms, we were trying to do it without owning the property. And in all of those farms, the culture of private property made it pretty much impossible and unworkable, which is where we came to the conclusion we have to figure out how to fundraise to make the property available in a shared way. So we have a purchase agreement. We do not have the money to buy it at this point. We have probably commitments for about half of it. And we're currently seeking the social mortgages, some people who may be willing to back us for a short time, you know, for the kind of the bridge financing. But we've grown over the whole, we've been working for most of that time at creating the space for other people to come in. And so we've interacted with hundreds of people at this point.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. So, the flip side of this, we think of this as the first campus of the Lifeboat Academy. And what we want to do is help you. Like what we've learned in terms of how to attract people, how to bring them on board, how to set up your structures so that you can minimize conflict. We want to provide that for other people. And we feel like with this as a base of operations, we would be in a much better position to be able to offer that without charging, you know, anything for it, just to help build that lifeboat network. So, and actually, to Roland or Ronnie, do you want to add anything to that?
I just, once you do find some like-minded people, it's really amazing what you can get done. And you don't really need, I mean, the 3 of us have been working on this, specifically on this property, for almost a year now. And the amount of progress that we've made in just fleshing out the vision and all of the particulars and the ins and outs of how things work. You know, we have a saying now, we probably have that written down somewhere. We have just spent thousands of hours on this project and have just developed, we work together really well. And we're also able to bring people into the project in various ways. So however we can support you to find those even 1 or 2 more people who are just willing to, you know, work together to collaborate and identify what needs to get done, because it really has been incredibly a very rich experience just just getting to this point. And so we're really hoping that it continues to move and grow and go somewhere. So just wanted to say that.
And just to answer, you were asking questions about the buildings. We didn't construct them. We kind of came across this property, and the buildings that are here lend themselves very well to the vision that we have in the project that we're building. Yeah. So the buildings weren't intentionally made for the project, but they lend themselves really well to it.
Yeah, that's very.
Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, that was my fault. I thought I was muting myself.
Well, while we wait for him to
Okay,
unmute,
right.
I'll just add.
Okay, please go.
Well, I was going to say that please also reach out to the Lifeboat folks for a little more about their experience and how they're putting together. Also, do reach out to Brian to talk about how Coho can help you find the partners in your region. We were part of a really amazing event just last week about building in rural intentional communities that had over 80 people show up at it, and this is clearly part of a growing movement. So we're happy to help connect you to people like Ben and Roland and Ronnie here, and also to some folks in your region who are looking to create these type of communities.
Pamela, you got a question?
Yeah, I'm more inspired and thrilled by what you guys are doing every time I see these different angles of what it is that is unfolding there. And so I'm glad I showed up, even though I'm not in a position to participate directly in your vision. It's something that I really do want to have tucked away as something to bring up with people that I know who may be interested in this sort of thing. The two sort of other areas that I was wondering if you'd speak to are sort of the problem solving, conflict management stuff. I've seen you guys in action, and I understand and really appreciate the scope of the skills that you bring to the people part of the process. But I'm wondering if there is anything further that you would want to say in this context about that part of just working together with people, and especially through conflict or something of that order. And the other thing is generally, if like I'm thinking of fun and of music and art and that kind of space, and what you guys have to say about how you guys get together and make culture. Not that it is only music and art that is culture, but that whole big package.
You want to take a go at that, Ronnie?
Yeah, so in terms of working through conflict, as we mentioned, we use Sociocracy as our governance structure, and Sociocracy has a really incredible tool called Navigating the Attentions. And this is a way that we recognize that tensions are inevitable, and they're actually really, really valuable information that show us where there's learning that's ready to be received. And attention is really at its core, it's just the difference between how things currently are and how we might like for them to be. So we recognize that conflict often arises because there are tensions that have not been surfaced in time, right? Things sort of stay under the surface. People don't talk about them, or we do it passive aggressively or whatever. And then they sort of erupt in ways that cause harm a lot of the time. So we use the Navigating the Attentions process all the time. And it's really just a circle process where you everyone gets a turn to talk about what's going on and to share considerations, concerns, and objections. So say we're trying to make a decision as a group. Before we make that decision, we all go around and share what are our personal considerations for the decision. And it could be practical considerations, emotional considerations, anything that's really coming up about this decision. And we each get a chance to share what those are. And we also get to share concerns. So, if things were to go this way, I'm worried that X would happen, for example. And also we get to voice an objection. So an objection is something that you can't live with. So if I can't live with this decision because I feel that this would happen, and I need it to go a different way. And the thing about making an objection, however, is you need to propose an alternative. So it's not just, I'm just going to say no, that's it, I'm stopping this train, but it's, I'm saying no, here's why, and here's what I propose instead. So when we use this process to make decisions, which we do considerations every day about something. What it does is it brings up all these tensions and potential tensions ahead of time, right, at the beginning of a process, rather than waiting for them to sort of erupt in the middle or towards the end of something. And it also it gives everyone a chance to be heard and to be considered. One of the principles in sociocracy is equivalence, which means anyone affected by a decision should get a chance to shape that decision. They get a chance to say how they think that should go. And so what we find is that we actually rarely have to address conflict in the ways that I think some other communities do, and communities that I've certainly been part of, because we do considerations about things on such a regular basis. We're really seeking out tensions and seeking out potential conflict before it happens, which means that it just makes everything easier. It's a smoother, energetically smoother environment to be a part of. People feel heard. People get to have a say in what's going on. And again, if there is, I do identify, okay, there's some big conflict happening. Again, we do navigating the intentions. Each person gets to say, I'm experiencing this as the tension. And usually through that circle process, there is a transformation that happens around the tension. Does anyone want to? I feel like that was maybe overly thorough, but.
Well, I think I'd add to that there's the navigating the attentions, and there's also, we treat everything as an experiment. And it kind of also relates to the idea of why we're not an intentional community, but instead intentionally coming together around a purpose. So the projects, what are we going to do there? What does that look like? How do we do that? Those kinds of practical questions, and in the spirit of an experiment, right? Like we have a goal, we know what we're going for. What can we try that seems to get us there? And it just diffuses so much of the kind of the stress about having to get it right. And getting the perfect answer on the first go. Like one of our mottos is what's good enough for now, safe enough to try. And that's the decision-making standard. And the good enough for now, safe enough to try is, can you live with it, right? That's, the objection. And it changes the frame of reference. So a lot of things that they can seem like really big deals in a different context just aren't, because we just, and we're iterative, and there's always a feedback loop. So you don't feel like you have to get everything right the first time. So I think that those are the two bits. I'm going to call it Jennifer, but I know it's not Jennifer. Jennifer's other half.
Ron.
Here we
Ron.
are. Yes. Hello. Back here in the Shuswap, just the two of us on this land, and just to refresh you, we're familiar with sociocracy and have had occasion to use it locally here. I'm wondering what it amounts to for you in meetings. formal and informal. How often do you find yourself meeting, even if it's just around a pitchfork, but seriously, you know? Can you speak to that a bit, please?
Well, we meet a lot, but we meet quickly. And part of like the way we operationalize everything's an experiment is aim, act, reflect, which means we use agile project. Part of Sociocracy is agile project management. So you break everything into sort of short, what are we going to do this week? What are we going to do today? So, you know, we have a huddle in the morning where we talk about the daily priorities, and we have a sprint plan on Tuesday mornings where we talk about what the next week or two is going to look like. So, I mean, we do meet a lot, but the thing I like about Sociocracy and the tools is that all of them are scalable. So like Ronnie's saying, we gather considerations, but that can be like 5 minutes. Something comes up and we're like, oh, wait, okay, so considerations? And you just zip around the table, and in 5 minutes you have it down, and you're like, oh, okay, so it's clear we're going to do this, right? Right. Okay, off we go. Or it can be for a big project. It can be a much bigger, more elaborate, multi-session kind of thing. So it's really kind of it is a framework where, and part of that is knowing like, when is it a good time to pause and talk it through? And when is it, no, let's just go, let's get this done. No, let's pause and talk this through. So yeah, I think it's about using all the tools really lightly. Any other questions, comments? Oh, Barbara. Barbara, then
Hi,
Linda.
yeah, hi everybody. This is really great. I'm just really enjoying listening to the really good questions and the deepening conversation that's emerging around that. So I haven't actually had to ask a question, but I do have one. One has arrived, and it has to do with agreements. So in all that's being developed so far, and what's emerging in your process on Pender, have you noticed a need for, or a desire for, of any kind, to have agreements, so when people come in, that there's a clear awareness, people who are considering coming in have a sense of what's already been agreed, and so and a willingness to then come in to that space that is already underway. So that's one part of it. Are there agreements or any kind of process around getting to that place of common ground? And then the back half of that is what, and maybe you're not far enough into it yet to experience it when that goes a bit sideways, when agreement is well, it's humans, right? Yeah. So of course I was just trying to be tactful there. So what happens when there's something that blows, or someone triggers, or there's an unmet expectation, God forbid, but you know how that goes. Can you speak to that a little bit for us?
Well, I mean,
Thanks.
that's a core of Sociocracy, is everything is based on agreements. And behind that is, we are really clear, this is a non-coercive space. We are peers. Nobody has authority over anybody else. And so we only work on agreements, and the agreements have to work for everyone. And there are layers of agreements. There are the specific agreements about, how are we going to use the kitchen, and how to, what does it mean to take care of the goat chores in the morning? Those are very, checklists, lots of checklists and things. And then there are the sort of the deeper agreements, which we revisit every day as part of our circle in the morning. And it's, what do you need to be present and show up today? And the agreements tend to be more, we use something we call the oral tradition, which is, there are themes that come up regularly, but we want them to be alive. And we recognize that a lot of those agreements are a little bit more aspirational. And so when we fail in those agreements, we all kind of, there's a level of compassion in, it's, we don't call you out, we call you in. It's when you're not living up to the agreements, it's recognized that, like, well, then, how can we help with that? And likewise with I don't want to ramble too much on this, but all agreements are time limited in Sociocracy. So you always revisit them periodically. And likewise, if like even one of the functional agreements, if it's not getting followed, then we say, oh, well, do we need to change this agreement? How do we want it to work?
Mhm.
And yeah, so Ronnie, you probably have something you want to add to that. So I'm going to throw it over to you.
Yeah, I was just going to frame it also in terms of the different layers of agreements. So there's the agreements for the different functional areas and the ways that things get done in the most, humane, good, efficient ways. And then there's our morning agreements. We have villager agreements. So we have a document for anyone who's coming to stay on the farm, things around common spaces and water use and not being disruptive and during the nighttime hours and all those kinds of agreements. We have a stewardship agreement for our stewardship council. We've got agreements for anything and everything and everyone. And again, it's not there's nothing punitive, right, that's ever enforced if agreements aren't met. It's just, why is this happening? Does something need to change? Do you need support? How can we support you, or how can we support this together? So it's just a very different sort of culture and way of being together. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to call us to be present in our humanness and in a mature humanness. And I'm really getting a large sense of, it's awareness driven. So if, as you say, if an agreement isn't working, that actually points to maybe perhaps something that needs to be attended to.
Yeah.
So awareness and tending and kindness, I'm also hearing. So it's quite lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the questions.
Linda?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been following your work, Ben, for a long time, because I've been kind of active in the climate field, and I actually thought you were doing more sort of spreading the lifeboat sort of model that you've created, maybe through workshops or retreats, and I'm sorry I missed the very beginning. I could not for the life of me find the link, but I'm kind of curious, how are you hoping at some point, if not already, spreading, sort of the the governance model and what's possible that you've already learned from and are using?
Yeah, we're doing it all at once.
God knows it's needed, and that's really mostly my interest, because I'm so far away from you, and I would love to know, where in Southern California something like this might be happening. Yeah. Well, and so we are trying to promote the model as well, and the support. That's the help desk is, we've got a simple 5-step process that we've developed that is really kind of bringing people up to speed on treating everything as an experiment. And that's kind of that's like really the kernel of it. And like Barbara was talking about it, along with that is this more iterative, relational, feedback-oriented systems way of working. It comes naturally when you start working experiment to experiment. And part of the reason why we are trying to establish the campus here is a lot of these concepts are really hard to, you can't describe them, you have to experience them. And so we're really thinking of this campus here as being a place where people can come and actually experience what it's like. How much do we meet? How long does it take? How hard is it? How easy is it? What happens when disagreement comes up?
And actually, so we're hoping is that we can create the experience here and then send people out back to their home communities and say, now here's how we can support you to do something similar there. So that's why we see the campus as being kind of an integral part of promoting the model so that we can actually have people feel it rather than just, talk it.
So maybe that's something that I missed. So in other words, someone like myself could come up and visit and spend, I don't know, a month or something with you and literally experience it in some way. I mean,
Yeah,
that would be a possibility. Okay.
totally. That's so there are different ways of getting involved. We did mention, I guess this was oriented towards people that might be timesharecroppers.
Right.
But then there also are the agritourists, right? The people that are just coming for a retreat, for a long weekend, for a 2-week kind of like learning the lifeboat way. That's also part of our income model, is that those sort of occasional guests are, partly how we generate income.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for that. Yeah.
I just want to plug too that we also offer internships, which will typically be ideally like a season or so for folks who really want to come and learn how we do things, how to collaborate effectively, how to move through all of our different processes, as well as learning how to farm, learning how to do all the different kinds of things. And it's very, it's driven by the individual intern. So whatever you're interested in, we can tailor the experience to your interests. Yeah, just wanted to also mention that.
Thank you.
I also had received a message or a question in chat. Do we have access? Sorry, it says, I probably don't understand purchase agreements, but you have access to the land without owning it. Do you lease or rent it?
Yes, we are renting and we have a purchase agreement. So yes, we pay rent currently on the way to closing on and then owning the property. Christine.
Bit of a side question, but also on this idea of sort of networking the lifeboats. I'm friends with people on other properties who have are also in their like first, to second to third year and establishing left the city, want to have some kind of collective farming experience. Most of the people I know have been working through woofing, but they know that they want to establish something more substantial. Are you interested in, are those some of the people you're interested in connecting with in terms of a network? Because some of them are nowhere near the size of what Spalding Farm is, or what, but they have very much similar values and similar ways of process.
Mm-hmm.
Is that some of the networking you want to do and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We want to we want to support anybody who is working to increase their place-based resilience. And we think fundamentally your resilience comes from your relations. And so that can mean different. We recognize that there are going to be urban lifeboats and suburban lifeboats and rural lifeboats, and some will be agricultural and some won't be agricultural. And we think that we have a model that can help you. What we think our model is really about, how do you grow the social relationships? And through that, all of the practical information will become available, right? The skills and the knowledge of the people in the network are going to fuel it. So yeah, anybody who is, we are a community of people around a purpose. And how do we grow in these troubled times? How do we grow our resilience and do whatever it is we can do in the face of climate change and disruption? And we want to figure out how we can be mutually supportive.
And similarly, I'll add that Coho is here as well for those people who are looking for partners for their land. If they have farmland and they'd like to find other people to help them with it, feel free to reach out to us and we can help connect them with ownership partners as well.
Yeah. And I will double down on, and these guys get it. They totally get the collaboration and partnership. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I think this has been a really phenomenal introduction. So thank you to Ben, Roland, and Ronnie, and thank you to the great questions about the values and the community and the vision that this group has brought forward. I'm going to reiterate that there's definitely, feel free to follow up with any of us to get more information. Once again, I'm trying to put up this contact information on here, and reach out to the Lifeboat Academy at their website or their email address. Reach out to Coho BC at our website or our email address, and we hope to see you all get involved in sustainable, socially progressive, environmentally supportive, and affordable opportunities. So please do continue to stay connected. As I said, you'll all get a copy of this video, so please pass that along to other people. Spread the word about Lifeboat, spread the word about Coho, and let's keep this movement growing.
Thanks so much. It's good.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for being here.
Yeah.
Take
Thank
care.
you very much. Keep in
Thank-
touch.
Thanks,
you.
everybody. See you
Thank you.
soon. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.